gonna make a carrot cake banana bread. And you guys, if you've seen my banana bread video, it's one of my most popular videos. And if you haven't, I'll leave a link in the description. But this is a spin-off of that. I'm just gonna take that banana bread recipe and I'm gonna make it more like a carrot. I'm gonna add carrots to it and make it more carrot cake in texture. So I hope you enjoy this video. So let's get started. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take half a stick of butter. And we're going to take 1/4 cup of brown sugar, softened butter, a half a stick of butter. We're going to take a teaspoon of baking soda, we're going to take a 1/4 cup of salt. I'll just leave the recipe. I'll put this recipe on my blog page so y'all can go print it out. It'd be easier. And we're going to cream this together. Okay, we're going to add a little bit of vanilla. Mix that together. And now we're going to get 2 eggs. These are farm fresh eggs straight from my chickens. Just get 2 of them. Okay, I'm going to pour those in. Gonna get this creamed up. I'm going to add 3/4 cup of granulated pure cane sugar. You can use the white sugar if you have it. Now to this, I'm going to add some pumpkin pie spice, and I'm using this because it has all of the spices that you need, but I'm going to list them out on the recipe. So it's ground nutmeg, ginger, allspice, cinnamon, and nutmeg, but all of those spices are in the pumpkin pie spice. So I'm just going to add that in. And then I'm going to mash 2 bananas. Your bananas, to make this recipe good, do not have to necessarily be really ripe. Ripe bananas are good when you're baking, obviously, but it doesn't have to be. I've tasted it both ways. And if you like your bananas chunky, then just chunk them up. But this recipe calls for them to be mashed, so I'm going to mash them. And all we're going to do is we're just going to take a fork and we're going to mash them. Just like this. If you want to quickly ripen bananas for a recipe, you can take bananas in the peel and put them in a paper bag, close up the paper bag, and put them in a dark space, and they'll ripen up within hours. Okay, so we're going to add all the mashed bananas. Everybody in the bowl. Okay. We're going to add 3 tablespoons of sour cream. And I'm just eyeballing it, but that's what the recipe says. Okay, I'm going to mix that in. Now we're going to add a cup of shredded carrots. Now I buy the organic pre-shredded carrots, but you can shred them yourself if you want to. Do not put chunky chopped carrots in here because it won't taste well at all. The texture will be awful. And I'm going to eyeball this, okay? I've done this recipe so many times that it's pretty easy to follow for me. And at this point you could add raisins, you could add walnuts if you wanted to, pecans, all that stuff is great. I can't put nuts in here because my husband is allergic to tree nuts, so he can't have them, but you certainly could. Then we're going to add 2½ cups of all-purpose flour. And I'm going to start this slowly, so I'm going to put it all in here, but you could probably do 1 cup at a time. Okay. You just want it to really blend up and get all that stuff in there. Okay, so it's gonna look like a really thick pound cake mix if you've ever made a homemade pound cake. We're gonna get it into, we're just gonna use a loaf pan. I don't know if you can see that, but just a regular loaf pan. I'm going to spray it down and put it in a loaf pan. We're going to bake it at 350 and for about 30-35 minutes. And you're going to check it. Just make sure that whatever, if you use a toothpick or a knife, whatever that you choose to test your batter, after that 30 to 35 minutes, you want to make sure it comes out clean. And once it does, then you're going to want it to cool. And then this particular bread, we're going to have a frosting for, and we'll do that next. Okay, now we're going to make the frosting. We're going to take half a stick of butter and a brick of cream cheese. We're going to cream those together. It's really softened. I'm going to cream these together. Then we're going to add a cup of powdered sugar. You can sift your powdered sugar if you like. When using powdered sugar, I just recommend that you start really low with your blender so it doesn't fly out everywhere. Just make sure it starts out really slow until you get it in there. Okay, now we're going to add a little bit of our spice, which again I'm using pumpkin spice. Just a little bit. And a dash of vanilla. A little more than dash, but that's okay. It'll be fine. Okay, to this, you just want to let it sit while your bread is cooling down. Bread out of the oven. So once ours is cooled, brown and it's cooled off, get our bread frosted. And I've tested it to make sure that it's done. I had to cook it longer than I said, so I'll adjust the time in the recipe. So we're going to take our frosting that we mixed up and we're going to frost the top. And this frosting only goes on the top, and you want to make sure that your bread is cooled off because this is butter and cream cheese, and if it's warm it'll start to melt. You don't want that. Alright. Gonna add this. Now if you wanted walnuts or pecans or anything like that, you could chop those up and then drizzle them on top of this. But tonight, since we have a nut allergy in our household, I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of brown sugar. But you could sprinkle a cinnamon or anything like, you know, a spice or anything like that on top. You can also chop up, really fine chop some, you know, carrots and sprinkle it on with the nuts as well. I'm gonna sprinkle just a little bit of brown sugar on top. And there you have it. Let's slice up some. I'm gonna go ahead and slice through the middle here. And then I'm gonna slice. I'm using a serrated knife. It's so moist, it's falling apart. But this is a delicious bread, and it's super good with coffee or a really good tea. But it's This is slightly warm. It's not even, I wouldn't even call it warm. Yum. Delicious. I wanted you to be able to see the carrots. This is a beautiful bread. I hope you'll try this recipe. And thank you for joining me. And I'll leave a link to the recipe so you can just print it right out. I'll also leave a link to my carrot cake recipe. It was an award-winning recipe for my grandmother. So I hope you'll join me next time, and I'll see you guys on the next video.